30 years, we've partnered with CARE to keep girls in school and to help women start their own businesses and gain financial independence. We're proud to support CARE's I'm Every Woman campaign and conversation series in celebration of International Women's Day. We know these discussions will inspire people to build a better, more equal world for everyone.
Welcome. I'm thrilled to be with you today. For over 25 years, it has been my great privilege to work for CARE in many roles around the world, including setting our first global program strategy and putting women at the center of our work. Today, I'm focused on leading our 2030 vision in contribution to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. On International Women's Day, we get a chance to celebrate every woman, the leaders, the problem solvers, the protectors, the givers, and the changemakers. Every week this month, CARE is hosting exciting and insightful talks with women who have shown leadership and bravery throughout their lives. They remind us to celebrate the power of every woman and the collective strength that will lead us into a stronger, more equal future. You can join CARE in celebrating International Women's Day by tuning in for these talks, watching our remake of the anthem I'm Every Woman with Chaka Khan and Idina Menzel, and by sending a CARE package to support women around the world at care.org/everywoman. I'm honored to lead today's episode of I'm a Changemaker with three incredible women, Paola Mendoza, Marley Dias, and April Rain. In addition to being a film director, activist, author, and artist, Paola Mendoza is co-founder of the Women's March. She co-authored the New York Times bestseller, Together We Rise, behind the scenes at the protests heard around the world, and her films, which tackle the complex issues of poverty and immigration and women's and children's rights, have been premiered at the world's most prestigious film festivals. Marley Dias is the purpose-driven 16-year-old who has been leading a successful international movement to collect and donate children's books that feature Black girls as the lead characters. Her leadership has resulted in more than 6 billion media impressions. April Rain, viral hashtag OscarSoWhite that sparked a movement, was inspired by the blatant lack of nominees of color for awards at the annual ceremony and across other events recognizing creative works. She left her law career to dedicate herself to advancing for people in marginalized communities. Please join me in welcoming these inspirational changemakers. CARE believes, and our work around the world proves, that when you lift up women and girls, you lift up entire communities. Why do you think women and girls are such effective change makers? Paola, let me start with you.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be in conversation with these three incredible women. It's always an honor to be talking about women and the great change that we are trying to make happen in this world. You know, it's an interesting question. One of the things that I've obviously noticed in the past 4 years, once Donald Trump was elected, and we founded the Women's March, and the work that I've gone on to do on the front lines of activism in the United States since then around immigration, around feminism, it is that always in the room organizing were women, predominantly women. Like when I say predominantly, I mean like 9 out of the 10 people that were there were women. And we would often joke about it. We would be like, where are all the men? How is it that the men in this moment in crisis weren't in the spaces that were being organized for everyone? The Women's March was very specifically, obviously, for and about women, but it was an intersectional feminist space that was inclusive of men, that talked about immigration reform as a women's issue, not just as an immigration issue. We talked about the criminal justice reform system as an issue that affected women, and that women needed to be at the center of that, talking about that. So I think ultimately what I've learned in these 4 years of fighting against the regime of Donald Trump, it is and was, and I would say previous to this as well, women are at the forefront fighting and creating change, because we know that in order to take care of our families, that in order to take care of our children, that in order to take care of our communities, we have to be out there fighting for change. Because when we, as you said, make change for our families and for ourselves, we are ultimately lifting everyone around us. And I think that is what drives me personally, is to make sure that my community is taken care of and protected. And if I'm not going to do the work, then who will do the work? And I think that that is what ultimately drives women.
Thank you, Paola. So Marley, let me ask that same question to you. Why do you think women and girls are such effective change makers?
Now, I'm not sure exactly why, but I can speak to its importance in my life and in my family's life. My mom is an immigrant from Jamaica, Retreat St. Mary, Jamaica, a very small parish and area in her community. She grew up, completely isolated with her family, her cousins, and how, her grandmother had instilled in her the sense that everyone was family, that community was really important. And I can't speak to that experience happening to many women and girls, but I know that even when I go to school, the friends that I'm around and all the friends I have that are girls have been instilled with similar ideas across the board, that their actions and decisions that they make affect other people, and that as they exist and go out in the world, whether it's taking, giving, listening, and learning, that every action and step you take, whether it is solely beneficial for you or others, is a part of a larger and more grand scheme of things. I think that stems from, family values, religion, culture, and sometimes the ways in which women have been negatively pushed, women and girls have been negatively pushed towards careers that give more than they take. So sometimes, women are told that they can be nurses, not doctors, that they're supposed to be teachers and homemakers, and that a lot of these jobs and careers and choices require women to learn more about their communities, to be the people that listen, to be the people that give. And I think that also spreads and bleeds into people all across our community as women and girls. So I don't necessarily know why, but I understand its importance. And I think it's something that can unify and has helped me unify with people who don't necessarily share my ideas, beliefs, or thoughts, but they also understand the importance that they've learned from their grandmothers and their grandmothers' grandmothers, that giving back and the action that you take in everyday life do affect others. And that as you make those choices, you have to be conscious of your community and of the people you care about as you make those choices.
Thank you. April, over to you with the same question.
Oh, there's nothing left. Marley and Paola did such an amazing job answering that question. In my experience, women are also are typically the primary caregivers in the home. They are taking care of the children primarily, and so we all want to make this world, this country, our cities better for our children, right? I mean, that is the whole goal. That when we leave this earth, we're leaving it in a better place for our children. And so that means that we have to step outside of our home. And so if there's something wrong in our schools, in our communities, with the education system, with the economic system, then we are going to have to make a change again to make it better for our children. And so I think that because we always have that empathetic mindset, we're always thinking about how is this going to affect, our household. We are able to make change. We are sometimes forced to make change because we need to see a difference for those who are coming up behind us.
Paola, let me get back to you. Your acclaimed films have tackled the effects of poverty and immigration on women and children in the United States. Is there a story or experience that has inspired you to elevate these issues? How can other women use their life experiences for inspiration to fuel change?
Yes, there is definitely a personal story behind those issues, and that is that I myself, and I'm a daughter of an immigrant. I came to this country when I was very young, this country being the United States. And my mother, my brother, and I were being reunited with my father. And soon after our arrival into the United States, my father told my mother that he was going to work, and then he never came home. So he abandoned my mother with 2 children. I was 3, my brother was 6. My mom at that time was 25, with no English. We had no family here whatsoever. She had a high school education, and she literally had $200 in her pocket, and that's all she had. And so my childhood was seeing my mother make miracles out of nothing every single day. And those miracles at times were literally getting food on the table. Those miracles at times were when we were homeless, making sure that I didn't feel scared, that I didn't feel like I had done something wrong. She protected us. She instilled education in us. And ultimately what she was able to do was to have both of her children live in a house, in an apartment, and eventually eat 3 meals a day, and eventually graduate from college. And so for me, the stories of immigrants and the stories of women are very important, because they are the stories of my mother. They are the stories of the unsung women, the unsung heroes, I should say, of women that I grew up with, who, when you look at their stories, are such an inspiration, are so incredible, need to be celebrated. They need to be shown as heroic as they are. And yet, unfortunately, in this country, immigrants, women of color, being poor in this country, it's all looked at as something bad, as something to hide, as something to not celebrate. And so it is my life's mission to tell the stories of my mother and the women like her, to try and shift that narrative so we can celebrate those incredible women that ultimately are the fabric and foundation of this country.
Thank you for sharing your story, Paola, and that of the unsung heroes through your films. April, after you saw the list for the 2015 Oscar nominees, you created the phrase, Oscars so white. Tell me about the moment when you realized this became a viral sensation. Why do you think the hashtag resonated with people?
Sure. I'd like to say that I was sitting around a mahogany conference table and ideating and strategizing with my team about how to make a difference with respect to diversity and inclusion in the entertainment industry. But the truth is, I was just an avid moviegoer. I had no network whatsoever. I was just dismayed about the lack of representation of people of color in the acting categories, and also, incredibly importantly, behind the camera as well, because you cannot be what you cannot see. And all of us look to entertainment, whether it's movies or TV or the stage, for an escape, sometimes for an education. And if you can't relate to the people that are on the screen, you're much less likely to consume that entertainment. And so I took to a social media platform and said, OscarSoWhite, they asked to touch my hair. And that one tweet went around the world and became viral internationally. And then we had to have a broader conversation, not just about the Academy Awards and the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences, the folks who run the Oscars, but also all of the shows are basically the same. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association has less than 100 members, and none of them are Black. So, part of the issue is that, we operate with our own implicit biases, and that's not racism or bigotry. That's just, we are comfortable with things that we can relate to. And so if a straight white male who is the predominant voting member in all of these voting bodies, whether we're talking about the Screen Actors Guild or the Oscars or the Golden Globes or you name it, if they can't relate to a story about 2 queer women women or to disabled people or to people of color, and then therefore they don't want to see that movie or they don't want to watch that TV show, then that means that the film, the performances will not get the accolades that they deserve. So it's incredibly important that we highlight all marginalized communities, regardless of gender identity, sexual orientation, visible or invisible disability, even geography. Our next Viola Davis may be living in Kentucky somewhere, and age. I brought up Viola Davis, and she has mentioned the fact that, she would love to become an action star at her age, and yet, she is not given those roles. And we see James Bond in several different ideations and iterations, playing those roles regardless of the age of the actor. So more needs to be done with respect to equity and inclusion in all facets of the entertainment industry.
Thank you, April. Marley, let me come to you. Was there a specific book that you were reading that inspired you to create 1,000 Black Girls books? Tell us about a moment that made you aware of why representation is so important.
I don't think there is a specific moment in which I realized that representation was important. And I like asking this question now because my mom and I actually had a really interesting discussion about the importance of representation. And although you didn't ask this question, why a lot of people ask me, why does it have to be about race? Why does race matter? And that question often comes from people who are not Black and primarily then white people that ask, why do the stories of Black people matter? Why do we have to talk about race? And that comes from the space and the headspace of many people who always see themselves, who don't have to request, ask, or think about how their race or how the way that they present themselves in the world, their phenotype, genetics, and culture affect the way that they're seen by other people. Because when they look at presidents, when they look at actors, action stars, the dolls, the hair, the people they see in their beauty supply stores, all these people look like them. And it doesn't have to be a thought. So when it comes to me, I had that similar experience in my home where I didn't think about my experience as a Black girl as something that would be excluded by other people until I got to school, because my parents were able to have the economic resources to buy me any book I wanted. If I wanted to have 1,000 Black girl books in my house, I could have raised the money for myself to have 1,000 Black girl books in my house. But when I got to fifth grade, by that time I had become a really avid reader. I was super interested in learning more about the world around me. And I noticed that my teacher, as a white man who really did love to read, was only assigning stories about people who looked like him. So we read Where the Red Fern Grows, the Shiloh series, and Old Yeller, which are all books about young white boys from country and rural areas with their dogs, raising money for a hunting contest or growing up and just experiencing life as a young boy in the South. And he is from Georgia and has that same experience. And that's his story that he feels is really important to tell, because it's been a given in his life that story matters for him and it matters to him. So I appreciated his interest in having us read, but I then began to notice that, hey, my parents can afford to buy me 50 books a year that I want to read that show Black girls. But when we get to public school where everything is standardized and we need to have, we have 500 students in my elementary school, not all these students will have the same access and opportunity as I do to see the stories that they want. So why don't we make school a place that includes the experiences of all kinds of kids? So it was really that comparison that I was able to draw, which comes from a lot of the training I've had from my mom of, her asking me questions, wanting to hear my voice as a young person, asking me what clothes I wanted to wear, how I wanted to do my hair, and presenting me with the option to speak about how I feel about things, whether small or large. And it started really with my mom and emphasizing that point to me that, being a Black girl matters and that, I should always see myself and my stories as valid and important. And that by creating resources in my home that have Black girls as the main characters, I knew my story mattered before anyone else did. And she really set that foundation for me. And I always give credit to her for that, because I didn't have to make kind of a conscious decision or breakthrough, but rather I knew from basically being 2 when I was first able to read that my story mattered. And then I was able to draw really critical and important comparisons that then led to the development of 1,000 Black girl books and wanting to collect more books where Black girls were the main character.
I'm blown away by the clarity of your analysis, Marley, and by how you started raising your voice so early, so powerfully. Paola, What do you see in the future of the women's movement? How can everyday people support the movement and help to continue to push for progress?
Question a lot. How can I help? What can I do? And it's a difficult question to answer because ultimately each individual has to find their way to the change that they want. And whether it's a hashtag, whether it's a march, whether it's writing books, whether it's doing civil disobedience, whether it's doing art, whatever it is, everyone has their lane into the activism to make the world a better place. And so I always frame my question back to those that want to know what to do. What moves you? What injustice is unfathomable to you that exists in this world? And when you identify that, when you know what that is, then go try and change it. Go try and make that injustice no longer a part of this world. And at the end of the day, I think I say this often, that all of us here that are gathered, we are optimists. We have to be, because we are trying to make the world better, trying to solve problems that's like going to be resolved or solved in our lifetime. And yet we have the faith and the belief and the optimism that when we are no longer here, someone will pick up the torch and continue that work to get us to the world that we want. And so to those that want to pick up that torch, be an optimist, be bold, be courageous, go out and do the work, and don't wait for me or anyone to give you the answer, because we don't have the answer. You have to be your own answer.
Choosing our lane based on the injustice that most deeply moves us. I love the image of finding our lane, Paola. April, we've seen a lot of progress in terms of representation on the screen and off since 2015. And a lot of promises are about even more progress to come with the racial justice reckoning we experienced this summer. What does true change look like to you?
True change looks like normalizing inclusion both in front of and behind the camera, if we're talking about the entertainment industry. True change looks like us not having to have these conversations anymore because people are being intentional about their choices, and this has to come from the studios on down. Very often we get asked various questions, and the change, we cannot ask those who are being oppressed or marginalized to change the system, especially when that system was specifically created to exclude them. Right. So in this case, it has to come from the top. It has to be the studio heads, who, again, are very often white men, to say, no, we're going to make a difference here. We're going to adopt the inclusion writer for all of our films and be intentional both in front of and behind the camera. We're going to look more at the union-based laws with respect to gaffers and key grips and all those people who work below the line, and determine how we can get more traditionally underrepresented people on the set, because right now it's a vicious cycle. You can't get into the union until you get a job, and you can't get in a job because you're not part of the union. So for me, it really is going back to the gatekeepers in the entertainment industry. And what gives me the most hope right now is that producers and actors are taking it upon themselves to no longer wait for a seat at the table, but creating their own mansions and putting their tables in it. Michael B. Jordan is a great example of this. He was an early adopter of the inclusion writer. Obviously, Ava DuVernay is the prototype with this, and she has just released a new program with Array, which is her production company. And so we just need more people who say, we're going to take a chance chance on ourselves, because what we know is that the more diverse a project is, both in front of and behind the camera, the more money it makes. The Latinx community is the largest growing population with respect to moviegoers, and yet we don't see them in front of or behind the camera. We don't see their faces on screen nearly enough. There need to be more than just Coco in the world. And so when those films come out, like Minari most recently, we need to make sure that we are giving it the respect and the accolades it deserves. You know, how do you call a film that was shot here in the United States about a Korean American family, a foreign film? And that just goes to the bias, again, that we're seeing from the various studios. So the real point, true change comes to normalizing inclusion and ensuring that we are making changes every step of the way. And we as consumers, those of us who are sitting at home, are having conversations with our dollars, either through streaming services or after the pandemic back in theaters, and choosing to watch those films that reflect our values with characters who are predominantly on screen, who look like us, and ensuring that we speak out and we speak up about those things that are important to us.
Thank you. Marley, look at all of what you have accomplished already at the age of 16. Truly impressive. What is your wish for young girls today?
I love this question because I think I always like want to motivate and empower young people to do things that, help their communities and make them be able to feel like they're living in a world that becomes a better place, that they're servicing other people and using their interests. But it starts with parents and with educators. I think that, people ask me, how were you able to identify that there was a problem? How did you feel the confidence to say something to your teacher or to bring this to social media? And that comes from my mom. It 100% comes from my mom. The idea doesn't, she has never been to American public school. She doesn't care about, books, this and that. She doesn't, share that experience with me, but she saw my passion. She understood that I had loved to read since I was a kid. 8 years in your kid's life, from reading at 2 to reading at 10, feels like forever. So I felt like I was, a lifelong reader. This was my destiny. And how could my teacher take something like that away from me? So when I think about my wish for young girls today, I wish for and wish that they have teachers in their lives and parents in their lives who are dedicated to giving them the best opportunities they have to speak their truth. Now, I cannot speak for everyone's both economic and social, obstacles and disparities, but I do think asking kids questions and encouraging them to share their opinions before it is moments of crisis, moments of pain, and asking them to talk about, what was their favorite moment of the day? What is their favorite subject? How can we sign you up for watching YouTube videos and taking online courses about the things you love? How can I show you, 80s music videos where they wear the same makeup as you? How can I show you these things and present you with opportunities to connect with the art in our world, the history, the literature, and formulate, really strong opinions, feelings, and understandings of the world around us. So when it comes to my wish for young girls, is that they are supported by older women, men, and all kinds of people that are allowing them to pursue their own interests and breaking down the mindset that you have to wait until you grow up to do something. Now, I have learned so much from people who are older than me, and I do not share the experiences of so many adults, but I think that my mom has done something really unique and special by making sure that she knows that I don't have all the experience in the world. I am not an elder, and I do not deserve the same respect as an elder, especially as a young Black girl. I know my place in the Black community about these experiences, but also that we can work in collaboration with people who are older than us in pursuing these dreams. And that it does not take one person to change the world, and it cannot be changed by one person, that's just not going to happen. So allowing me to understand that I exist in a community, and it goes back to your first question about why are women and girls more powerful change makers, or why do they feel the inclination to change the world? It is because we respect, understand, and value the power of community. And if we encourage adults in our lives to look more about the way that they're presenting themselves to their child, the way that they've taught themselves, and the socialized behaviors that they have that affect the way the child sees themselves or others, we can empower young women and girls to care about themselves, to care about others, and to want to do things that help the world become a stronger, more positive place.
Thank you so very much. What an incredible conversation. To wrap up, let me ask all three of you to complete a sentence. This sentence: I'm a change maker. I'm every woman. I believe every woman can drive change by. Paola, let me start with you.
I'm sorry, say the sentence again. I am a change maker. I'm a woman. I am a what?
I'm a change maker. I am every woman. I believe every woman can drive change by.
Okay. Oh, that's really sweet of you to put it in the chat, but I don't have my glasses and I'm blind, so I really can't see unless I'm like this. I am every woman. I am a change. I am every woman.
Just do, I believe every woman can drive change by. Just the last part. I believe every woman can drive change by.
Thank you. I believe every woman can drive change by. You know what? Can I not go first since I've gone first with every question and give me a second? Thank you. Thank you.
I'll go first.
Oh, that was Marley.
So, sorry, April, you want to go first?
No, Marley does.
Marley, sorry. Marley,
I get to go last on everyone.
Marley, could you complete this sentence? I'm a change maker. I'm every woman. I believe every woman can drive change by.
I believe every girl can drive change by looking to their past, looking through history, and being hopeful and optimistic for the future. We cannot give up. I know that the world is tough right now, but we cannot give up. And I really hope that kids in my age don't feel so pessimistic about the future, but rather learning more about our history, learning more about our past, and then using that to feel fueled and energetic for what's to come.
Thank you, Marley. April, I believe every woman can drive change by.
I believe every woman can drive change by centering herself first. You know, you cannot get water once the well runs dry. And we've talked about women being the focus of community. And so we need to ensure that we are taking care of ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. And then women can drive change by being intentional in our choices. You know, I go through life saying, will what I'm about to do positively impact Black, disabled, trans women? That's my baseline every single day, because they are the most maligned people, especially in the United States. And so if what I am doing will make their lives just a little bit better, then I know it's going to help everyone else along the way. So we need to center ourselves and then be intentional in every single thing that we make, in ensuring that it's going to help someone who is more marginalized than ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you, April. Paola, let me finally come to you. I believe every woman can drive change by.
I believe that every woman can drive change by truly, deeply understanding the words that Fannie Lou Hamer spoke when she said, I can't be free unless everybody is free. We can't be free until everybody is free. And that means that truly doing the work for others, doing the work of equity, doing the work of justice, doing the work of living in truth, and thinking about community first and foremost, thinking about younger generations. Marley is an inspiration, the way in which she sees the world, the way in which she's living in this world, and truly embodying those words. And I think that if we do that work, if we look to the Marleys of the world, that we will move forward in the progress that we are all trying to, or not all of us, but some of us, I like to believe most of us, are trying to get to.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paola, Marley, and April, doing the work of justice, of equality, of equity. Thank you for your leadership driving these movements and your continued support of marginalized and vulnerable people. Thank you. I'm inspired. I'm moved. This has been a very, very special conversation. Please visit care.org/everywoman to check out the remake of I'm Every Woman and send a care package to support women around the world who are standing up to build back a stronger future. Thank you all for joining today as we seek a world of hope, inclusion, and social justice where poverty has been overcome and all people, women, men, girls, and boys, live in dignity and security. Thank you.